I've already mentioned, we were so blessed to have so many more experienced ministers come to help us in the early years. One in particular was a man named Dr. Ed Cole, and his emphasis was on men's ministry and family. And he gave me an important lesson in life that I want to pass on to you. He told me that if I don't take care of my family, what good is success in ministry? And Mayan and I made some quality decisions as we began a family. As I mentioned already, my daughter was born in 1986, my son in 1990. And as a young family, we would still be traveling all through Europe or South Africa or America. And we made every effort to take our children with us. We knew there was going to be a time when they wouldn't be able to come. When Jessica started school, for example, and then it's not possible to always travel. But it was so important for me that they understood when Daddy had to go someplace or Mommy had to go someplace, what we were doing and why we were doing it. I made it one of the greatest priorities in my own life and ministry not to lose my family because of the work I was doing. Because I've seen it happen so many times. People put everything into their ministry, and it really is their ministry. I didn't want it to be my ministry. I wanted it to be the ministry that Jesus had entrusted me with. And I knew putting my family first was so important. I'll never forget, I was speaking in Australia, in Sydney, with a pastor named Brian Houston. We were both speakers at this conference at that time. This was way before Hillsong was really worldwide known like it is today. And Brian is an old friend that we met in South Africa in 1990, and him and his wife, Bobby. And I remember there was a speaker, and he was really tough on all the teenagers. He really corrected them, and I thought he went over the top. He shouldn't have said those things that he said. Later that night, we're sitting together, and he asked me to come into his room because he wanted me to pray with him. And he begins to tell me about the struggle he was having with his teenagers who were walking away from God. And I prayed with him, but on the inside I thought, my kids right now are little, but God help me that when they become teenagers, they won't want to run away because all they've seen is hypocrisy or they've been left behind because there was such important ministry to do. I made it and a priority in my life to put those kids first place because I knew God had entrusted those children to me and to my wife, Mayana. I'll tell you now, they're adults. They have their own families. They both love God. They're both busy for God, and I've never had to force that upon them. They made their own choices. They know they do what they do because it's their persuasion and not just because Mommy and Daddy told them they have to do it. So I want to encourage you. Keep your family first and watch how God blesses. One of the greatest dangers that God has promised us is success. It sounds like a bit confusing, but success is something God will grant us, but we always have to watch our motives in our hearts. God warned Israel. He said, when you come into your land, in your houses, in your farms, and everything's great, don't forget me. We have a tendency to forget God when everything's going good. In all the years I've been pastoring, I've watched people come to God in desperation, and I've seen God's mercy, and He's helped so many people. And so often, too often if I can say it honestly, after people got God's help, you didn't see Him anymore. And I think there's a tendency in having the blessing of God and forgetting from where it came. I know this happened to me in those years when the church was growing and prospering. And I thought actually I could do anything with my faith. Now, I told you in the early stages of a ministry, God had given me a mandate. Bring the message of faith. Well, I was not only bringing the message, I was also kind of bringing the tradition. Each Christian group and each Christian movement has its own traditions. And it took me a while to distinguish between a lifestyle of faith and the tradition of faith. And that's been a whole process. But one thing I had to learn real quick, when I first came to Germany, because we didn't expect to stay here, it was all so quick, we had $50 and 2 suitcases. And thank God, God helped us. He gave us jobs. He gave us opportunities to make money. But all the way, we always had to pray and ask God to help for finances. After a number of years, I think this was sometime in the early 90s, I got to a place where we saw a lot of finances come into the ministry. I would be at meetings where we would give away 50,000 D-Mark at one time to a ministry because we felt God told us to do it. It was a lot of money for us when you started with nothing. And I remember having this feeling of overconfidence. I didn't catch it quick enough. And we came to a point where we had to make a decision about a building we were renting. And renting buildings, number one, it was hard to find buildings. Number two, really expensive. And so we signed this contract, and I went into this whole thing rather foolishly. I didn't pray about it. I just assumed God always helped me. He'll help me now. And we signed a contract, and I didn't really understand the fine print. It gets you in trouble if you don't know the fine print. And it wasn't so much the money that we needed to pay for the rent. It was all the extra costs, the running costs, the electricity, the heating, all the things they added on. We had been in the building already for almost 10 years, so I assumed it would just be the way it always was. But they changed all the fine print, and I didn't really catch it. Well, it wasn't shortly after that we started to realize we're giving more money out than what we're taking in. And it was a lot of money. We were running almost $25,000 in the minus every month. And I'll tell you what, I'm a pretty stubborn person. And I think in my own willpower, we kept this going about a year. But after about a year, I couldn't go anymore. I went to God and I said, God, I am so sorry. I know that I signed this contract. I did this without first consulting you. Please forgive me. And I got an immediate answer. You're forgiven. And I said, God, what are we going to do? He said, give it over to me. Watch what I do. It's all taken care of. Well, I thought, well, great. It's all taken care of. Next week, everything will be fine. Well, next week it wasn't fine, nor the week after that, nor the week after that, nor the month after that, nor the month after that. We were almost in litigation for a legal situation, fighting about these extra costs, and we were up to about $400,000 in minus in our rent and utilities. And one night I had a dream. It's amazing, during these almost 4 years, something was happening in me. That proud, overconfident young minister was suddenly learning how important it is to pray, to get God's guidance, even in the little things, in everything we do. And I was beginning to learn what it means to really cast your care over on God and let Him take the burden. I realized I wasn't worrying, even though the situation looked like a catastrophe. I knew in my heart, God's got a plan. Something's going to happen. Well, one night it did. I had a dream. And in this dream, I dreamt about tax laws. Now, I might not be the brightest bulb on the street, but I knew if I'm dreaming about tax laws, God's trying to show me something. So the next day I called my tax accountant. Thank God he's a Christian. He kind of understands my craziness. And I told him, I had a dream about a tax law. And it got him to thinking, and he said, I want you to send me the original contract. I sent him the original contract, and I'll make a long story short. We found out we had been paying a tax that we never had to pay since 1986, and this must be 1996, 1997. When everything was said and done, we got to the penny everything back from too much taxes paid that we owed to the new owner. We were able to negotiate a new contract. We were able to settle all the disputes about the utilities. And we've been in this building now since 1986. And here we are in 2019. But God in that dream took care of everything in just one thought. But I'll be honest with you, it's when I went to God 4 years earlier, told him I was sorry, and heard him say, I'll take care of it. It's already done. What an adventure. God is faithful, but he's more concerned about what we're becoming than what we're doing. I had to learn that the hard way, take my lesson from it. God wants to see transformation in each one of us, and that's the most important thing. So here we are in 2019. I'm coming to the end of my story, although my story is continuing to be written. I'm not finished yet. I want to use the days that I have and the future that I have in seeing this local church where God has called me to pastor be given into the hands of the next generation, and that I might be freed up to travel and visit younger ministers and younger churches, just like older ministers came to me when I was young and helped me and my wife do all that we did. When I think back of all these years, 40 years almost living in Germany and ministering, there have been so many people that have stood with us, held our hands high, kept us going when we were tired and discouraged. It'd be too many to mention, but God knows each and every one of them, and I'm thankful for each and every one of them, because it's never just what one person can do, it's what we do together. And I think if there's anything I can leave at the end of this videotaping, it is simply this thought. When one discovers who we are, what God has given us, what we are to be doing, and we use that, it changes the world around us. I never dreamed that I would be living in a different country, that I would travel to so many different places, that I would speak to so many different people and impact so many different lives. It goes beyond my own imagination. And I know it's not me, it's not my talent, it's not my charisma. I know it's a gift that God gave, and I know God gives each one of us a gift. And as we discover those gifts, if we discover that destiny, and we let God be God in our lives, we change the world around us. And I believe that's what God truly wants to do. So, God bless you. Thanks for listening. This is John Angelina.